As a practitioner, one of the things that I hear the most common as a complaint from clients who have recently come through the birthing process is, oh, I wish I had known. I hear it over and over and over again. And despite really trying to educate about the postpartum and what the postpartum body needs, we have a much bigger problem in our culture around a collective lack of education and around the role of mothering and how we make mom into a martyr. She puts herself last for everything, which translates into a quality of care, especially when we're looking at the postpartum. Join me this week as we take a look at the postpartum travesty and how mom needs help. Hi, I'm Adrienne Irizarry. I'm an Eastern medicine practitioner who is passionate about women's health and helping women live their best lives. My goal is to put you in the driver's seat of your menstrual health, offering period solutions for a symptom-free life. Statements made in this program are for educational purposes only and not intended as a substitution for medical consultation or advice. We do not claim to diagnose, treat, or cure any diseases. This podcast is inclusive and welcomes all gender identities. The focus of the program is on biological function, and we will use the term women throughout, but it is referencing physiological and social challenges for biology, not identity. Come as you are, I am happy you're here and welcome all performances of identity. I hope you find something helpful in this show. Welcome back to another episode of the Reproductive Rebel podcast. So I'm going to get a little feisty this week, and I hope that you're going to get a little feisty with me. So the other day, I shared a post from an account called Undefining Motherhood. Like I've said in past episodes, I'm really big on sharing other people's work, not because I can't come up with it on my own, but because I want to use my audience to help spread the word with other people who are like-minded professionals who are saying things that we all need to hear. And I feel like if I do my part and I share their work with others, that it just, a rising tide lifts all boats. So this particular account, Undefining Motherhood, there was a post, and it starts with moms in green felt unprepared for postpartum recovery. And I saw it in my feed, and man, it lit me right up, because the entire slide is little green people with a handful at the very end that are pink, meaning that the vast majority of people who enter postpartum do not feel properly prepared and resourced for their recovery. This is an epidemic problem in Western culture. It's an epidemic problem. I, too, felt massively under-resourced for my postpartum because until I was in it, I didn't know what I didn't know. It's one of the reasons this podcast exists. Let's raise awareness about stuff like this so that you don't have to suffer. You don't have to feel under-resourced and underprepared. You know where you can go for information to help support yourself, support your recovery, support whatever phase you are in your life. It might not be postpartum, but in this set of slides that Undefining Motherhood did, it says postpartum is the most neglected period of a woman's life. It's so true. One of my clients that gave birth to a baby quite recently had things on her registry that were parent-focused. Yes, there was baby-focused stuff on there, but there was parent-focused stuff. And when I reshared this post, one of my clients responded to it and said, of all of the things that I put on my registry for parental support, none of them were purchased. This speaks to such a big problem. When I reshared this, I reshared it with the thing at the top that says we spend more time on showers and gender reveals and baby clothes than we do talking about what mom's body needs after she's given birth to this baby. Everybody gets excited about the baby. Everybody wants to see the baby, come visit, hold the baby, but they don't help. I have a friend who's a postpartum doula. I love postpartum doulas. They are literally the angels among us. And I have a friend that's a postpartum doula, and she said it best. And I've used this quote several times. I'm going to keep using it because it's so spot on. Help is not help unless it is help. I'm going to say it again. Help is not help unless it is help. This is so important because you will have well-intentioned family members that just want to come see the baby. They just want to come hold the baby. They just want to come visit the baby. And maybe you've had a cesarean and you can't lift any weight more than your baby. Or maybe you had a really traumatic birth and you are empty. You have lost blood, you've lost chi. I mean, you're going to lose those things during the birthing process anyway, but maybe you're extra empty. Maybe you had no complications with your birth at all, and just the physical process of birthing is literally one of the biggest things your body's ever going to do, if not the biggest thing your body will ever do in its lifetime. I remember laying there after having my daughter 13 years ago, and I could smell chicken rice soup smell coming up the stairs. I was laying in my bed because I gave birth at home. It was a beautiful experience. I didn't have any issues birthing at home. I'm so grateful that I made that choice. It was the right one for me. And my mother was downstairs and she was making soup. And I just had this moment, and I remember it as vividly as if it happened yesterday. And I remember thinking to myself, as I was holding my little gurgling, cooing baby in my arms and just looking at this amazing miracle that I had brought into the world, and my mind started taking inventory of my whole body. And I remember thinking to myself, holy shit, I have been a competitive athlete. I have done some pretty extreme things in my life, and I have never done anything that tests the salt of what I'm made of the way that this process just did. I was physically exhausted, blissfully happy, but physically exhausted. Yay, oxytocin. And looking at this absolutely perfect little human in my arms and just in complete awe that my body built this little miracle. And together we brought her into the world, she and I, right? Because mom and baby worked together during that process. And yet I didn't know how I was going to get out of bed to go to the bathroom, let alone anything else. So our cultural narrative gets it all wrong. All wrong. If you look at international postpartum practices in other parts of the world, they get it. There are some really beautiful traditions in countries like Morocco, for example, where mom just lays in and she's covered from head to toe in fabric so that her body stays warm and her body stays protected, because you're energetically open. You're physically open. You know, there's practices like I discussed with Rebecca Duggan last season about closing of the bones out of Mexican culture. You're open after you have literally been a portal bringing your babies from spirit side, earth side, right? Like you have brought this little human into the world and now you are open and you're empty. That little person in all of their magical glory has literally taken all of the fabric of your body to build itself. And you are as physically, emotionally, and energetically empty as you will possibly ever be. We had just recently started talking more about baby blues and postpartum depression. And thank God we're starting to have a conversation around these things because women suffered in silence for so long. But it isn't just the mental health side of it. And how much of the mental health side of it is driven by the lack of physical care. From a Chinese medicine perspective, if you have certain deficiencies and you are going to walk out of pregnancy deficient, it doesn't matter. However you look at it, you are walking out of your pregnancy with a deficiency. Buckle up. But depending on how deep that deficiency is, for whatever reason, maybe you threw up through most of your pregnancy and you couldn't keep anything down. That really put an extra strain on your resources, right? Because you couldn't refill the tank. So for whatever reason, sometimes these deficiencies can actually drive some of these emotional challenges. The postpartum depression can be circulation and blood deficiency related. The anxiety can be deficiency related. Your body is anxious that it doesn't have all of the things that it needs. So our body needs support. We glorify mothers making themselves into martyrs in our culture. We glorify it. Mom is the last one to eat. Mom puts herself last all the time. Everybody else in the household comes first. And doing that and reinforcing that and modeling that for the next generation teaches people that your self-worth isn't important. Putting your own oxygen mask on first isn't important. But the reality of it is you can't give to anyone else if you do not have enough to run yourself. You can't. And because we glorify this moms putting themselves last, this almost martyr, like, I'm the last one to go to bed. I'm the one up wrapping the presents until 2:00 in the morning, like whatever it is. Okay. Collectively, we glorify this moms putting themselves last mentality. When you overlay that onto postpartum, it doesn't allow mothers to attend to their physical recovery and the fact that they have had a life-altering identity shift, particularly when you're becoming a mom for the first time. Your life has changed forever. You are no longer just you. You will always have this tie to a little person for the rest of your life. Whether you choose to raise that child or they're given up for adoption for reasons outside of your control, it doesn't matter. You have had a life-altering identity shift. You have stepped into a completely different chapter in your life. And we don't hold space for that in our culture at all. We need to do better. We can do better. We live in a country, and I'm saying this as somebody who lives in the United States, we live in a country that so undervalues maternal care that we do not have paid parental leave. There are some companies that are getting with the times and they're stepping forward as leaders and saying, hey, we're going to do paid maternity and paternity leave. But in general, mothers race back to work because the cost of living is fucking ridiculous. And you can't survive on one income alone. And now you have the extra expenses of a little person. And you need both incomes. You needed them before they were born. You definitely need them now. And it forces people to go back to work because they need to make money to live. But they go back long before their bodies are ever physically ready. The 6-week follow-up is a fucking joke. It is a joke. We don't separate puppies from their mothers before 8 weeks. And yet 6 weeks, you're cleared to have sex, go back to work, and resume life as normal. Are you fucking kidding me? Our bodies aren't ready. Culturally, in other parts of the world, there is an understanding of the 4th trimester, that 3 months of healing, with the first month, the first 40 days, 30 to 40 days being the golden month. The golden month is 10 days in the bed, 10 days around the bed, 10 days not far from the bed. You're not even supposed to be leaving your house, let alone taking your child to visit extended family, taking your child, lifting car carriers, like those freaking plastic things. I understand that they're supposed to like protect your child in case of a car accident. Well, holy shit. When you don't have any stomach muscles to speak of, because all of your organs have been displaced, your abdominal muscles are separated, and then you have to lift a 25 to 30 pound plastic baby carrier with the weight of your child in it on top of it. Get out of here. Our world is not built to support postpartum bodies. It's just not. We need to teach moms before the postpartum what they can expect when baby comes. I think this is one of my biggest challenges as a practitioner, honestly and truly. It's one of the things that got me into this work, actually. And there are a lot of women that go through this postpartum period and go, what the fuck? I was so underprepared. I didn't have this. I wish I had known that. And then they go into working in this field because they don't want other people to suffer the way that they did. There's so many of us that are called to this work because this is such an epidemic problem. Yet, now that I'm on the practitioner side of it, with such a deep desire to make a difference in how this narrative plays out in our culture and to give moms what they deserve, which is help and knowledge. If you know anything about me and have been listening to this podcast for any period of time, I am all about empowerment. Knowledge is power. The more you know, the more you're able to make aligned decisions for you and be proactive about your health instead of reactive when shit starts to go sideways. We need to teach mom before she has her baby. And yet I find that is the hardest part of my job, is to get moms to show up before they have their baby. Because they're focused on creating a nursery and painting the room and building a crib that kid is probably not going to get anywhere near for the first 3 months of their life or more in some cases. But you don't know that until you're in it. This room stands empty. Maybe you change your baby in it, but then you get to the reality that it's much easier to throw a changing pad down on the floor and change your child in the middle of the living room, wherever you are, because going upstairs to a nursery to change them up there is insane. Some people do it, but generally, as you settle into this parenting thing, you realize, man, I bought a lot of stuff I don't need. I have a lot of stuff I don't need. Man, I wish I knew fill in the blank, right? Did you know that you can actually supercharge your productivity? It's true. If you learn to work with your phases of your cycle instead of against the phases of your cycle, you actually become somewhat of a force of nature, not to be punny. Join me on March 21st at 6 p.m. Eastern Standard Time for Cycle Productivity Secrets. I want to give you the 411 on how your cycle works, the gifts that you are given in terms of your productivity and your health in each of these phases, and how you can become a superpower planning your workflow with the phases of your cycle. The link to enroll is in the show notes. And now, back to the show. So we need to teach this to moms beforehand, and we need to normalize that they need this stuff. Just like we need to normalize pelvic PT during the pregnancy process and in postpartum recovery. We have more pelvic floor dysfunction in this country because insurance doesn't cover it. It's asinine. Sometimes people don't even know pelvic PT is a thing until they can't sneeze and not peel over themselves. We deserve better. We deserve better. And some of this is this education piece beforehand. And I find that it's the hardest thing to get pregnant moms to show up for. I have offered more informational sessions for pregnant moms, and I end up with an empty room. And it breaks my heart because those are the people that reach out to me afterwards and go, oh my God, what do I do? And I can't even begin to tell you how much it makes my heart ache when I think about how I could have helped them not even get into that situation if they'd only worked with me ahead of time. And I know just from talking with other colleagues in this field, they feel the exact same way. So we need to change the narrative. Moms need to know how to support themselves in the postpartum before the baby comes. They need meal trains. They need to be provided with realistic expectations and education about what their physical recovery is going to look like. This whole, I'm going to put on my pre-baby pants a few weeks after I give birth. Yes, there are some genetically gifted humans that are able to do that, but that is not the reality for most of us. I will never forget the first time, and again, I gave birth to my daughter 13 years ago this year. So I didn't have a lot of visual, like, this is what a postpartum body looks like. I suffered with body dysmorphia really bad for a portion of my postpartum period because I thought that there was something wrong with me. I expected my skin to go back. The stretch marks didn't bother me, but the fact that I now had this fupa that didn't go anywhere, like, that really bothered me. And it made me feel yucky in my clothes because I had expected that my skin stretched to accommodate her. It was going to go back. I didn't know. Man, didn't I feel dumb when I asked my mom about right around my daughter's first birthday. I was like, did your skin ever go back? She goes, oh, no. And I was like, oh, so this is normal. But we don't talk about what normal is. We don't talk about how scary that first bowel movement is after you've had a vaginal birth and you've pushed a small human out of your body. That is a terrifying poop, people. But we don't talk about it. And then we think there's something wrong with us because we're like, oh, well, this isn't normally how this goes. Like, should I be concerned? We need more realistic expectations around the physical part of this process. We need mental health resources, especially if people really need them. We need to take the stigma and shame out of that. There is nothing wrong with you. You're in an extreme hormonal transition. That affects the way that your emotions and your mental health show up. We need to normalize this. And you need to be allowed to have feelings because there's also this piece around feeling shame, around feeling overwhelmed, or feeling shame around having challenges around breastfeeding, or feeling like you're doing something wrong, or you're so frustrated because your baby keeps crying and you can't figure out why, and that makes you feel like you're less than. These are all normal struggles that we're all dealing with, and we don't talk about it. We don't normalize it. It is not part of regular conversation. Checking in on our moms is so important. How can I help you? Show up. Just do their dishes because they're going to be like, oh, they're going to feel like they need to be the hostess and like they have to get up and entertain if you're there. Tell them to sit down. Don't worry about it. I got it. Do their dishes. Throw a load of laundry in there for them. Maybe you prepare a meal, or maybe you bring a meal over that you prepared at your own house. Organize a meal train. Because I can tell you, postpartum moms don't eat enough. And they definitely don't eat enough of the right things. And when you see things out there like, make a smoothie, it's nutritionally dense. No smoothies postpartum, for the love. Don't do it. Because it's cold and your body, you've depleted your chi. You have to put chi back into your body. Your tummy is coming back into position, let alone having enough energy to process things. You have to serve mom like brat diet type stuff. Soup, stews, things that are warm, easy for her to digest because her tummy can't handle it. And her stools definitely can't either, because she's had a small person displacing all of her organs and muscles for so long. All of that stuff has to have an ability to come back in. Warmth helps with that. Get rid of this idea that you need to be hosted. In my postpartum recovery, I found myself as a host, and it was so hard. And man, did I bleed. I bled so much because my body didn't have the resources after giving birth to this small human to host people in my house for 3 weeks who didn't make meals or do laundry or anything like that. It was so hard. And I paid the price, because when we martyr ourselves like this and we try to be the good hostesses and all of this other fake, false bullshit, the only person who suffers is us. The only person who suffers is us. We heal slower. We end up with challenges later on. It can lead to secondary infertility problems. I'm living proof. And I see it in my practice every damn day, because we think that we need to be perfect. It's this societal expectation of women. We've talked about this in other episodes. This unhealthy expectation of what we're supposed to show up and do in our role as a woman. When you have given birth to a small human, everybody else should be waiting on you like you are a princess. No exceptions. You don't have to act like a diva princess, but they need to be waiting on you like you are a diva princess, because your body is in its most weakened state. And if you don't want to have brain fog lingering for a long time afterwards, if you don't want to have period problems when your period comes back, if you don't want to have breastfeeding issues because you don't have enough resources to go around, you have to park your butt. Not, I'm going to try to exercise and get back into my pants. No, none of that shit. It takes 9 months to build a small human. It takes you at least that much, if not longer, to start reclaiming your body again, because your body has to heal. This is the biggest job your body has ever done. And I know I've said that over and over and over again, but it is so damn true. We need to support mom by creating a sleep plan ahead, so that it's not just one parent, so that each parent has an opportunity to sleep after the baby comes. Mom, when she's breastfeeding, it's hard. Every time baby's hungry, she's up to breastfeed, but she has to sleep. Otherwise, her body doesn't heal. Her milk is a struggle. You can throw all the herbs in the world at it. I know I did. And I struggled to breastfeed my daughter. I pumped even when she wasn't asking to create that supply and demand. And I still fought for every drop of my milk. I look back at it as a practitioner now and I understand why it happened. It happened because I was entertaining people for 3 weeks, because I didn't rest enough, because people didn't take care of me. My mom did the best she could, but she was working full time. She couldn't stay with me all the time. I didn't even know postpartum doulas, like I said, angels among us, man. I didn't even know they existed at that time. Again, a lack of education. We need to be building our care team before the baby arrives. Who is going to hold us in those moments where our body is literally the most fragile and vulnerable it's going to be of its entire life? Because when we're held and we're cared for during that time frame, we eliminate a lot of future health problems. Because remember, early last season, this was like February, March, I did episodes about your golden opportunities for hitting a reset button on your health in your life. So if you didn't hear those episodes, definitely go back and check them out. Postpartum is one of your golden opportunities. Every single time you have a baby, it does not have to be your first baby. Every time you have a baby, you are in the postpartum and you have hit that opportunity to hit a reset button on your health. This is a golden opportunity, a pivotal moment in your long-term health picture that you cannot waste. For me, it led to years of cycle-related challenges and infertility issues, secondary infertility, because I did not know what I didn't know to care for myself and how to set boundaries and hold boundaries. You and your partner need to be a team around boundaries. They need to help advocate for, no, she doesn't want this. No, we can't have people over right now. I love you, but this is going to have to wait. Your partner has to help be an advocate for you. If you're able to have a postpartum doula, they will help advocate for you. But you have to create plans ahead of time. Make food ahead. Set up strategic stations around your home so that you've got things that you need on hand. Remember what I was talking about, throwing the changing pad down on the floor in the living room? That kind of stuff. How you're going to communicate your needs once the baby comes, because you're going to have well-intentioned family members that are going to make you feel uncomfortable around telling them no. And it's not that you don't love them and it's not that they don't love you, but you are stepping into this parental role, especially if this is the first time you're having a child, and you have to hold boundaries. You can set loving boundaries, but you have to be able to set boundaries. And having this kind of a plan ahead of time means that you have the resources, the support, the right people in place. You know how you're going to offload your physical and emotional, mental load as you're navigating feeling burnt out, sleep deprivation. There's no shame in calling other practitioners if something doesn't feel right in your body. Your doctor, your chiropractor, your acupuncturist, your midwife, whoever it is that you're working with, call upon your network of people. Create a really solid care team before you go into this postpartum period, because you're going to need people on speed dial. There's going to be times where you're going to really be struggling and you're going to feel very frustrated in this postpartum period, either because limitations of your body. I'll give you a great example. I had no idea how hard it was going to be to get out of bed. The physical challenge of getting out of bed was so demoralizing for me because I felt like I needed a crane. I had to roll myself to the side and try to roll myself out of bed because I couldn't sit up. I had no idea that my core wasn't going to show up for me like that. And I really struggled with that. Again, being an independent, physically strong, strong-willed person, being in such a weakened state was a very, very frustrating place for me. And I remember when I started exercising, I felt like I started from ground zero and I was never going to get anywhere. And that was so frustrating. Again, education about what this physical recovery is going to look like. And giving yourself permission to be frustrated in the moments when your body's not showing up the way that you were hoping. Postpartum is a process. It can be a very beautiful one, and it can be a very frustrating one. You are not alone. Let's normalize the conversation around this and put emphasis on the fact that moms need so much support. Lactation support, emotional support, physical support, being able to take in meals, all of these things. Let's normalize this, take the stigma off of it. We can collectively change the conversation around postpartum. So I was talking a little bit earlier about I was experiencing body dysmorphia and I had no idea what postpartum bodies looked like. And I was very discouraged with my own. And I remember, I think my daughter was about 6, the first time I saw this black and white glossy photo coffee table book that was just black and whites of postpartum bodies. And I'm sitting in a waiting room and looking at this book and I was crying, like openly crying in the middle of this waiting room because I so desperately needed to see those images, but I needed to see them 6 years prior. And I share that because it just goes to show that this conversation is changing. Awareness is growing. People are sharing their struggles to help others not experience the same struggles. People are stepping into being educators and practitioners to help prevent this from happening to someone else. We have a long way to go. We have a long way to go. Just like my client who gave birth recently, and none of the parental support things on her registry were touched. It was only the stuff for the baby. That shows how far we have left to go. So I invite you, if you are pregnant or you know somebody who is pregnant, please, please, please share this episode. Let's share this conversation with other people. Let's raise awareness around the education that we need going into our birthing experience. And this is more than just a Lamaze class at a hospital, folks. This is how your body functions afterwards. There are some brilliant practitioners out there doing this work. Let's join our voices and our energy and really start making a change for future generations, because I don't want my daughter to go through this experience. And I know that you don't either. Thank you for joining me for another episode of Reproductive Rebel. Reproductive Rebel is recorded by certified peri-steam hydrotherapist and acutonics practitioner, herbalist, and Chinese nutritional therapist Adrienne Irizarry of Moon Essence LLC. If you are interested in setting up an appointment for one-on-one support, ordering from our store, or checking out our course offerings, visit our website at moonessence.life. Be sure to subscribe to our newsletter and get insider information on upcoming events and offerings. Join the conversation. Like and follow us at MoonEssenceMe on Instagram, Facebook, or LinkedIn. Your voices make this program possible. Thank you all for your continued support.